That's it. We're on.
We're on YouTube. Like, people could watch this.
Uh-huh. I mean,
That's awesome.
it's late, so there's probably not going to be anybody. But we got
Nice.
Tony Fleck here, savage, entrepreneur, restaurateur, badass, Marine. Tone, let them have it. Drop some knowledge on these people.
So we're kind of starting in the middle of the conversation, but I was talking about the other day is that, man, to be successful and to keep moving forward, you have to accept failure as part of the path, man. And, you talk about Michael Jordan, how many shots he missed and all that. But not only do you have to have failure, you have to listen to people who talk about your failures more than talk about the 70% where you're moving forward and having success. And I've particularly discovered this in the last opening this new restaurant. Um, there's so many people around me telling me everything I'm doing is wrong, and I have to get out to the tables and I listen to people, and the proof's in the pudding. And there's definitely things I can do better, but you have 30 things to get done in a day and you drop 7 of them, you know, and it makes you feel like you're failing, but you don't see the 23 things you're getting done in the progress. It's like watching the hour hand, man. You just don't know what you're getting done until you have conversations like we have, and you go out and listen to guests or people put great reviews on, and it's so, it's like you have to have thick skin. You have to hear criticism. And the crazy thing about criticism is, you know, everyone has 5 different views on which bread you should serve. I can make this bread, I can do that. And you just have to, dude, it's like you have to slap them off the plate and you make a decision, you move forward. And even if I realized later that it was the second best decision, you still had to make a decision to move forward, man. If you sit there and get stuck and listening to all the negativity around you, and I'm not saying everyone around you is negative, but the more you add to your plate, the more criticism, the more all that stuff. And true savages um, continue moving forward
That's
when
right.
all of that's happening, man. It's like the storms hit you and the rain's hit you and you're trudging forward, man. And we always talk about that, moving forward with purpose, right? And
Yes.
so, this is the beginning of, we've been working hard together for 5 years, and you've been working, on your stuff, and I've been working on mine, and it's crossed over. And our conversations have been, some of the most inspiring things, like our old days back on the patio, man, looking at the full moon and Mars and just
Creative
beautiful
time.
stars out there. That's the creative time, man.
Yeah.
After It's 12:40 right now. It's after 11, man. You should call this. That's the name of the show. Should be called After 11, man.
The after hours. Because you're right. I mean, think about that. You were literally manifesting what's going on now, and that was what, 2021, summer 2021. And because part of what was going on there was the doubts and the I don't want to call it insanity, but just the chaos that was happening that summer. And typically in restaurants, but you could see through the chaos. Like we used to talk about, you're flying into the high LZ, right? You're parachuting in, getting shot at.
We were pulling up to the restaurant. All right, we're landing in hostile territory, man. And it
Yes,
was, and it is.
that
You
was
know it,
it.
right? And I called it when I would land and we'd go in. We had a plan of what we were going to do, and we got bombarded in every direction, man. And we lose focus. So it's like readjust, readjust. And what is it? We always say assess, adapt, and overcome, man.
There you
You
go,
know,
brain
and
style.
and God, it's so funny how it just evolves in what your day is going to be. You got, no matter what plan you have, you show up, and really, it's troubleshooting, and it's getting over barriers, and it's um, just taking care of one thing, making the next right indicated decision. A good friend of mine used to always say that. Just make the right next indicated decision, man. And a lot of times they're wrong. We make them
Yeah,
wrong, and
yeah.
then but you have to own up, you know and just change the direction. Okay, I'm down the wrong path. I can cut over the hill and through these trees and get back on the right path again, man. I took the wrong turn, man. And that's what the whole day's about, isn't it? Wrong
Absolutely.
turns.
And that's what's
Wrong.
good about, I think, when we digress, we would remember we would think about what was going on with the day. We would try to focus on what we needed to do the next day, and it would happen, right? We would implement it. So the basically when we digress and think creatively through the situations, that really helps. Like you're talking about, to have that mentorship, to have someone to talk to. I put that in my leadership course. Sinek talks about that: is have somebody to talk about your your dark times with, your tough times, and just walk you through it. Because if you're solo, just going at it alone, you don't have anybody to talk through it. It's going to be very difficult. So those were key moments, Tone. Those are, I think, key moments of us just creatively thinking of the progress and the future. Because you talk about the lot where you're literally going into hot LZs on a daily basis, but you're still able to, at the end of the day, think, okay, this is my vision. This is where I'm going. This is where I want to get to. That's impressive, Tone. That's a true savage, a visionary right there.
And taking the inventory at the end of the day, man, this is what happened right, this is what didn't happen. Based on today, what can I do tomorrow to make it a little better, man? Little improvements, man, little improvements. And taking care of the catastrophic things, like losing cooks or, 3 events tomorrow, man. I got 3 events on the same day, man. I got
Jeez.
80 in Priest River, and I got 2 class reunions tomorrow. One's at 12, one's at 5 o'clock. And the
Jeez.
five
All
o'clock
one day.
one's cool because it's the class of '83, and I went to high school with these guys for 3 years. I lived in the same town with them, my hometown, Bonners Ferry, and it's always cool, man. And that's part of the prize, man. When people come up and go, man, you got such an amazing place, and you've seen the patio at night, man. It's going to be
Beautiful.
cool. And
Yeah.
last year I did my 40th class reunion, and it's just so cool. And that's the part I'm talking about, where people come up to you, you haven't seen in 40 years, and go, "Man, this is amazing, man. So what was your career? Where'd you learn how to do this? And how did you put this together in Bonners Ferry, Idaho?" And then I start getting the chills, and it's the most rewarding, difficult thing I've ever done in my life since boot camp, Marine Corps boot camp, man. And
Wow.
and just like boot camp, man, the reward was bigger than the pain and the struggle. And so is this on a daily basis. When I lay in bed at night, okay, 1 out of 4 days, I lay in bed and feel like a failure. But that's the part of succeeding and being an entrepreneur is failure. Feeling of failure is what motivates you, man. You lay there and you're like, oh
Yep.
my God, I'm failing. Just like a class you're falling behind on, you have to throw more effort into it so you can pull it back up to a B. And that's what this is all about, man. You fail, and when you have that feeling, fear is a good thing. Fear of failure is what motivates me more than anything, man. And there are no other options, man. The only option is to succeed. And I
Success is
tell
the only option. Yeah.
it's the only option, man. Failure is not an option. Success is the only option. And no matter what gets in your way, man, it's like a video game, man. Getting to the next level. What's that door for? My daughter plays that, and I called it Minecraft, and she finally
Oh
told me
yeah.
after 8 years it's Minecraft. Or what's it called? I always say mind. I thought it was
Yeah, you're
mind.
right. Minecraft.
It is mind.
No,
Mind.
we're gonna have to Google that and put a link
Yeah,
up.
we're going to have to, man. But my daughter
I'm
cracked
not a
up the other
gamer.
day.
Not
But
a
that's
gamer.
what it is. That's what they aimlessly run. It looks like they're not doing something, but they're going towards something, and that's what they're into. That's my life in my restaurant is going down paths and getting lost and coming back. And oh shoot, there's other people losing their mind. I got to keep them on board too, so they don't jump ship, and or
Yeah.
or they don't feel overwhelmed. And that's what we have to do. We have to get it together ourselves and go, man, I'm going to do this. And then when you see people breaking down all the lessons you learn and how you felt about failing and we're not making it, and you realize the old adage, up to this part in my life, I'm batting 1,000 for getting through difficult situations. And those are the things you try to inspire other people with and go, hey man, I did it tonight at work. I was like, I know it's slow, man. There's something going on in the economy. We were slow in both restaurants, but then I drive through town. Every other place in town slow. Um, it's just not happened the last couple of weeks, and people in the restaurant, the guy I lease from, everyone starts questioning, uh-oh, man, you're not hitting the spot, man. They ain't coming in. And then, I'll start to wonder too. But because I've done this for 5 years, I know that feeling of pending doom and gloom is just part of the process. And you just got to go through it. And then you learn how to teach other people to get through it too, man, because, man, feeling like you're failing is part of success.
Yes.
That's all there's to it, man. It's
we,
crazy.
we talk about that a lot. I'm glad you brought that back up because I was going to say, even in sales, I used to teach people and just entrepreneurs in life is like, I dare you to fail. Go fail. Like have that freedom to fail because that's the only way you're going to succeed, like you just talked about. And that's where the grit comes from. And I always think, Tone, and I'll ask you this, but my own perspective is you've been able to do such great things because of the discipline from the military, from the Marines. What level of influence do you feel like Marines, the boot camp, has on you as a restaurateur and as an entrepreneur?
Gosh, man, a little
Salute,
bit of
by the way.
everything. A little bit of everything, man. So, you know, and again, they break you down, they break you down and you feel like miserable and why am I here? And they break you down and break you down and then they inspire you at the end. So I think no pain, no gain. When life is beating you up at the most, and you almost get to that levitated point of where you're almost like in a trance or something, and it's beating you. You just have to trudge forward. And I keep saying that over and over again. One day, some guy kept saying that to me, and I finally looked up the meaning. And trudging is to move forward with purpose. And so, no matter what's going on, man, and the old, we've said all of these before, and they're going to come out naturally now. If you're going through hell, don't stop. Don't
Keep
stop and
going,
just
right?
you just keep going, man. And the Marine Corps taught me that, man, and probably inspired me for that. And not one left behind. So I'm good at keeping my team happy and inspired, and knowing that I'm there to take care of them. They're there to take care of me. It's a brotherhood, man. And that so I've learned about the brotherhood in the Marine Corps. That we take care of each other, and my employees truly do help me take care of my family, and I help them take care of their family, and we're in this together. And I love the analogy of, and all the people that have lived since the beginning of time. Here, me and you are on this, YouTube little video we're making, and the people in my restaurant, we're there together, and I don't believe that's by mistake. And even if it is, we're in the same place in the same time. It's astronomical. It's like the stars out there. It's like, how is it that we all came together? And so we have to take care of each other. And it's just such a, and that's the positive side of it. Sometimes,
Yeah.
people annoy you and this person's out, they're not, and there are people that work for you that aren't all in, so you have to connect with people where you can. And the people that are there just to collect a paycheck, you have to keep them happy, so that they don't get in the way of the people that you're truly inspiring. And it just takes all kinds of people in there. So I guess, um, the Marine Corps helps you identify the people you want in your foxhole, the people you want on the
Hmm.
busiest shifts, the ones that are going to be the most challenging and all that stuff. So selection process,
I like
it's
that.
not just putting people. Cheesecake Factory used to say it's not just getting people on the right bus; it's getting them on the right seat on the right bus, and and it takes it all, man. If I didn't have, God, I'm going to try to be careful here. If I didn't have Wilbur, the dishwasher, that really just likes washing dishes and that's his motivation in life, is just coming and get a paycheck, I can't expect him to share my vision and work as hard at my business as much as I'm going to work at it. But he's still part of the process, and it takes all those people. And it's like putting a puzzle together, man, like putting a schedule together, getting the right people in there. And right now, we're evolving in both restaurants because I changed. I left the restaurant, and there's a lot of turbulence in Bonners, and I got a brand new place, a lot of turbulence, but I'm just looking at all the pieces. And, I assess, adapt, and overcome.
Yeah.
Always be, what is it? That's always be closing. but always
Those stuff thinking.
always looking, and again, so you look at it, you're trying to get everything right and all that, but in the middle of that are all these explosions and people fighting and not getting along and all that. And so while you're fixing those things, you're being an example to them how to behave and how to exist and how to thrive through chaos. Food service is utter chaos, man. It's crazy.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's more of a sport than anything, man.
And
Yeah.
you're equipped for it. You're equipped for it. So there's so many good. I want to just state a few
Hey, how you
questions.
doing?
We'll come back
There, you
to
can
it.
see Bam.
Hey.
That's brother John's daughter, Dawn. Man, she just graduated high school and turned 18. There's
Congrats.
Chloe over there.
The fam. There's Chloe.
Yeah. Oh, my newest dog, dude. Check him out. Salty. I know her in the middle. Look at that guy. He looks like Pepper, huh? But Pepper's way skinnier, huh? Awesome, man. Sorry, I thought I'd throw you a little domestic there since they just walked through the door.
It's all
Hey,
right,
you need to
man.
go.
Show the fam. Show the fam.
So fun stuff, man. So yeah, this is a good little pilot to start off with here, huh?
I like it. Natural, Tone. You're natural. And I was just thinking, there's a couple of great questions that I definitely want to handle. We'll have to do like part 2, 3, or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I have the set questions, but even just while you're talking, I'm thinking in my head. For example, challenges of opening a second location, mindset of going from one location, and even from a chef to now business owner of multiple locations. Man, so many things we can dive into actually. But real quick though, before we get too far into it, drop a little knowledge on who you are. Tell us, talk about who Tony Fleck is. Your
Tony
business.
Fleck.
Start with your business, your name, all that good stuff.
Yeah, my name's Tony Fleck, owner operator of Two Tones Public House LLC. First restaurant flagship store was Two Tones Cafe in beautiful Bonners Ferry, Idaho, in the northern tip of Idaho. It was my hometown. Well, grew up on Air Force bases, moved here my freshman year, but my mother, my grandparents, my great grandparents all went to high school here. But my whole life I've moved all over. So I only lived here 4 years of high school, but it's my hometown because I grew up on Air Force bases, and every military brat, their hometown is one of their parents' hometowns. And I actually did go to school here. So after a long career after getting out of the Marine Corps, I went to WSU. In '93, I was recruited when I graduated by Disneyland, and I went worked in New Orleans restaurants in Disneyland. And that was after about 8 years of working in restaurants. Even when I was in the Marine Corps, I moonlighted at a place called the Yum Yum Tree in Hawaii. I had cooked for about 3 years before joining the Marine Corps. And when I got out, going to college, I was a kitchen manager in an Italian restaurant. And then so I got down to Disney, spent a couple years down there. My wife at the time didn't enjoy Southern California, and got me to move up to Seattle, where I worked for Boeing doing corporate dining. And did that for a couple years. Then my wife left me, and we separated. And I had missed working for restaurants, and so I went with Outback Steakhouse. Worked trained in a South Center in Seattle area, the busiest Outback of like 450 Outbacks at the time, and then went to Spokane, Washington there, and I spent about 6 years total with Outback Steakhouse, and then I ended up going with Cheesecake Factory, where I trained in Dallas, went to Vegas at the Venetian, and everyone's got a Vegas store, $28 million a year. Now the Venetian is doing 32,000. I just talked to Chris, the chef, and I don't know if you met Chris when we worked at Bucks. And then I ended
You
up
the
in
tall
South.
guy?
He was a tall young guy, man.
Oh, yeah, I'm Chris.
Yeah, no, the real tall guy was. Am I gonna really go blank? Lyle.
Oh
Lyle was.
yeah, wow, super nice.
He was
Like
like
6'5",
6'6".
something like that, right?
He was so
Yeah.
cool, and he knew Spanish very well. He got along with everybody, man. So that's where we ended up meeting. Nick is I ended up in Scottsdale, and I love that story, man. You tell him about the interview process there, and then I'll go on telling you about that. That
Grand
was a
Lux
fun
crew.
time, man.
That was hilarious. So yeah, I was transitioning from being a chef to server, and you guys were looking for a lot of experience, and I didn't. But luckily, I caught you as an interviewer, and we just started talking about a lot of different things, and I could tell we are gonna get along good, and we could communicate about food really well. I knew, obviously, I didn't have the front of the house skill set yet, but I knew food. I knew how to talk about food and explain
And
food.
you didn't want to work in the kitchen. You wanted to
Yeah,
get out.
yeah, that was the thing. I
I
mean,
remember that.
I was running kitchens at Peter Jungle. I was one of the original chefs. It was 3 locations at the time. I was training the 4th. Now there's like 50. Um, and we just, unfortunately, it was one of those things where I was too good in the kitchen to where they would lose me in the kitchen if I was serving more. You know what I mean? So, I was just tired of working 100-hour weeks while trying to go to school and all that good stuff. So you gave me the
Right.
opportunity, you gave me the shot, Tone. You put in a good word, put your neck on the line for me.
Give you some coaching along the way in that process
Yeah.
because they were DQing anybody that didn't have experience in the front of the house, and they were looking for people in the kitchen, and they had a certain type of person they were looking for. They would have pulled you right in the kitchen, and I was like, "Hey, here's what you say, man." I remember that.
Yep,
I,
you did, because you're like, just say this because they're looking for cooks. They need the
yeah,
cooks.
because we were the entry level. I was an assistant manager. There was a management team of like 7 front of the house managers and 5 kitchen managers. And so us entry level guys new to the company was, like filtering through the BS and getting people out and sending them up to the next level. And, we must have interviewed 500 people in a couple weeks, man. It was a lot. And,
Wow.
there was 10 people interviewing, and then they would send them on to the executive or to the GM. And yeah, that's the part where I was like, hey, say do this. And because I saw you as definitely, I'm a really good character, a read of character on people who are going to do well, that can interact with guests, because you hire for character more than experience, man. And
Yeah.
you were an example of that for sure. So yeah, we spent a couple years together down there. I spent a total of 6 years with Grand Lux Cafe, and it was almost like being in the military during peaceful times. Man, everyone was getting promoted until about 2007. The market dropped, people stopped going out to eat. No one was being promoted, and it was stagnant at Grand Lux and Cheesecake Factory. And all those people that had started out before in 2007 and 8 were cashing out their stock option shares. So GMs that started with the company got a certain amount of stock option shares, and so when right before it started to plummet, it was known it was going to happen. So they lost like a significant portion of their GMs because if they would have stayed, their stock options would have dropped. And so they lost a lot of people. And then we came in after that. You know what I mean? So it was like, I'm trying to think of the right way to word it. So they hired a whole bunch of people, and it just was stagnant. So I ended up moving back up to the Northwest. I did an interview over the phone, and I got a job with Jake's Famous Crawfish, which is a top 25 in the nation restaurant. They did, I think, 14 million a year in sales. Not being in Vegas and doing those kind of numbers is insane. And they had been around since 1887, downtown, an icon. The pilot flying into Portland's like, don't forget to go to Jake's Famous Crawfish down on 12th and Burnside. And it was a very cool seafood, steaks. It just a really cool place. And Landry's had just purchased them recently, right before I got there, and everyone there thought I was a spy from Landry's because they were used to kind of. It was almost like a gigantic conglomerate mom and pop, because everyone they did these big Christmas parties, and no one had to, just everyone went and did their job, and then this corporate place comes in, and the manager has to slide to comp anything and all that. So they were all going through cultural shock of
Oh
corporate,
man.
and
Yeah.
and so yeah, they would come up and go, "You're a spy from Landry." I was like, "No, man, I worked at Cheesecake. By the way, every company I've worked for, the manager has to slide a card for a comp." And so they just weren't used to it. And
Old
I
school.
spent a couple years there, and then I was promoted to GM for Bridgeport Village M&S Grill, which is a McCormick and Schmick's, and it was just not a good vibe for me. And I ended up going to Burgerville, And Burgerville it is a top 500 company, man, and it's one of, when they do the surveys of best companies to work for, they're always in the top, man, and they're one of the few that's just a little regional company. There's about 43 of them, and I was the GM for, and I would call it the in and out of the Portland area, but it's not like it's more wholesome.
Oh, the
And
burger
when they get
spot, right?
it's a burger joint. It's a
Yeah.
quick serve, and but they would do, everything was seasonal. Like when the Walla Walla onions were in, they would do Walla Walla onion rings, and when the raspberries came into harvest in the area, they would do raspberry shakes. So they do that local, fresh, sustainable practices, which I learned a lot from. It's crazy because every place I worked at, I learned something from. Cheesecake Factory, I learned flavor profiles, your palate, where sweet comes in on your tongue, where sour, where savory flavors come in, and I learned about sweet and heat from Cheesecake Factory, man. And Outback Steakhouse, I learned about systems in place, which Cheesecake also had, but you know. Setting up systems in the kitchen so that you don't have to have high skilled chefs to come in and pump food out. And South Center, man, it was just incredible. The people there were just simple-minded cooks. And some of them they'd come in and not have a lot of experience, and they're just pumping the steaks out. It was just repetition and
Wow.
system play. So they did
System,
a
yeah.
great job. And so I learned things from each and every place. And then I moved back to Bonners Ferry about 25 years into my career, and long story short, I was a food and beverage director for a hotel casino in the area. That didn't work out. We parted ways, and you know the story, man. I just moved here with 5 girls. Um, my wife's freaking out. I gave up a 6-figure job, with Burgerville, and my wife was just freaking out the day we parted ways, and I was overwhelmed, and I was remember my wife losing it, and it's almost like I got beaten up, and you go see a friend and he's upset like you got beat up, and it's like, look, dude, I'm the one who got beat up, man. Give me a second to recover.
Yeah.
And I went home that night, and she was literally having a mental breakdown, and I went to sleep. And I woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I went, you know um, I should open a restaurant here, man. And I was like, no, I can't do that, man. I don't have money to do that. And then I was like, I could sell the house in AZ I got down in Mesa, take that money and just go into a restaurant, lease a restaurant or something like that. And I was like, no, I can't do that. And then almost therapeutically, I laid there with my phone right here, and the note. It's one of the first notes I did. I got 5 years of notes. So I've got like 320 notes where you put the first word in titles and it goes down.
Yeah.
And one of the first ones I put on
Got
this
the
phone
notes.
was I sat there and went, okay, of all these places I just talked to you about working, Yum Yum Tree in Hawaii and all that stuff, what would be the perfect, what would the menu be? Just kind of, fantasizing about if I could do it. And I spent about an hour together this menu. I had appetizers, dinner items, I had desserts, and definitely had to have bread service. And I truly had a vision, or envisioned what it could be, and that's how creation begins. You don't think, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and think about all the things you have to do, get done, or finances, or anything to do it. You just cleanse, the environment and go, okay, if money wasn't an option, if this was an option, this is what I would do. I would put this on the item and all. So I can open my phone right now, and it's 85 to 90% of what my current menu is. Came up in about an hour, and it was like, what thing there did I like the best? What was the superstar item there? What was the thing that I thought they should have done and they didn't do? And I literally just fantasized about putting this menu together. And 3 months later, I opened a restaurant.
Man, I remember that. I remember that. Tone, I want to dive into this
Crazy.
more. Unfortunately, I just got a message that my phone's going to die in like 10%.
No
So,
worries, man. We can pick this up later, man.
yes, yes, this is going to be a part 2, 3, maybe 4. But I love it, Tone. I love it. I'm going to have to cancel this, which is perfect time. We're right at the 29. And then I'll give you a call
That's a
back to
great place
we'll
to end.
pick up.
the opening of the first restaurant. Yeah, the next talk can be about the experience, man.
Yes,
The
so
experience.
much dropping a
Yeah.
bunch of nuggets for everybody right here, especially if you're trying to
Yeah.
open a restaurant.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you encouraged me to talk about it, and during these conversations, I want to hear more about your stuff, and let's dial into how how we met in Arizona, and how didn't really connect for 3 or 4 years. I don't know. I can't even remember how. Or we've always kind of stayed in touch a little bit, didn't
Yeah,
we?
yeah.
I had your phone. I think we probably talked once a year for the first couple years, and I don't remember, but we'll have to tell the story about how we got inspired to come back together. And part of that, is spiritual.
Yeah.
Um, there's a reason for everything, and um, you know what? It's just this is, and we have the video. We're gonna pull it out, man, of the hotel at 3 o'clock in the morning when we slept 2 hours before I flew you back after the most traumatic experience for you and me. One in the top 10% for me.
Oh,
Well, of course,
yeah.
because I ended up having vertigo, which is something I've never had before or since. And I thought I was dying of a heart attack. And you drove me to the hospital, and I was it was a that was a scary, scary thing. And then at the end of that, I'm taking you back to the airport, and we had an epic drive through the woods with rain flying down. Dude, it's a
What?
biblical story. It's a biblical story. That
Oh,
night was biblical, and so is this. I think this whole thing is biblical, man. It's gonna come to fruition that that this was meant to be, man. And the vision I'm having is nothing that I'm just creating. It's something that's there that I'm tapping into, man. They always say it's within you, and this is out there somewhere, and I'm just tapping into it. And you've helped me discover that I have a unique set of skills that I'm going to be able to reach the top of this mountain, man. Appreciate you, man.
yes, tell that's awesome, man. God does have a sense of humor, doesn't he? But everything's always on.
In God's time, man. In God's time, man.
Well,
Well,
thanks.
peace out.
Appreciate your time, Tone. I'll give you a shout right
Yeah,
after. But thanks again, man. Great insight for everybody.
sounds good, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Salute.
Bye.